Shalom Aleichem. We are going to have a short shiur today, just to go through the some points in Sif Gimel and Sif Daled in Simulation and Gimel, as was this week's Ramakonas. Starting off with Sif Gimel, it says, "Mashkim b'boker v'ra shehekdicha tavshilo." A common thing: you get up in the morning, you see that the cholent is burning, something's getting hot, overly hot. V'yara pen yakdia yoser, you're afraid it's going to get overly burnt. Yohala asiru laniach kdera yashana rekonis api akira vaz yasim akdera shetasha besocha agabi akdera rekonis. So the Shulchan Aruch says that you can take an empty pot and put it on the fire, and this pot is acting as a blech, is serving as a blech at this point. So the first chiddush we see over here is that the Shulchan Aruch is telling us that we are able to create a blech situation on Shabbos itself. Although until now we're talking about shehiyah, which is starting in Erev Shabbos, and the blech, or the garf hakatan that we spoke about, was done Erev Shabbos, which obviously it had to be done so because in the sugya and the Gemara that katum meant putting ashes on the fire. Of course, the only way to do that would be to do it on Erev Shabbos. But once we're saying that we can cover it with something else, which also serves as a garf hakatum, which would be a blech, or in this case in the Shulchan Aruch, putting a empty pot also serves as a blech. So that's allowed to be done even on Shabbos, as long as the Bir Halacha points out, as long as it's not so big that it covers the entire surface of in those days, the stove top, which was the where the air got down to where the fire was inside of the kira, which by putting it on top there and suffocating the air source, you're going to put out the fire. You're going to have over the isra of mechabe. So assuming we're not covering it to that extent, or today when you put a blech on top of the gas stove or the electric stove, of course it doesn't put anything out at all. So then we see from this halach and Shulchan Aruch that you're allowed to take if someone has something cooking on the fire and you want to take it off to return it back on the fire, but you never cover that fire, so you're allowed to put the blech on Shabbos in order to then cover that fire and then be able to put the pot back on with the other tanoim of Chazara, like we mentioned in the last shiur and Sif Beis. So that's one nakuda in the Shulchan Aruch. The other point here, the Shulchan Aruch allows us to take this k'dei rekanis and take the pot off in order to put it on top of the empty pot, as long as stipulates the Shulchan Aruch, you make sure you're not meniach al gabi karka. First of all, it has to still be hot and boiling like the other Tanai Chazara, as well as you can't put the pot on gabi karka. So we see from the Shulchan Aruch over here that putting the pot on top of another pot is considered like just putting it on the regular garf katum fire, which needs all the Tanaim of Chazara. It's not considered anything better than that. However, the Achronim will ask two kashas. The first kasha is from our siman itself. Later on, we have a halacha in Sif Hey, that there it says, if you look in Sif Hey, mutar lases apikaderes chamin b'Shabbos tavshil shenisbashil in the Erev Shabbos called sarko. You could put on top of the kedera, you have a pot that's cooking on the fire. You could take cooked food, which is not on the fire at all, but it was totally cooked in the Erev Shabbos. You could go pandish, and pandish is a type of a knish, like a meat knish, that's totally cooked before Shabbos. L'chamaman, to heat it up, she'ein derech bishul b'kach. That's not the derech bishul to put it on top of another pot. So we see here from the Shulchan Aruch that it's not considered derech bishul to put one food on top of another pot. Inside a pot is derech bishul, on top of a pot is not. So if that's so, then why in Shulchan Aruch and Sif Gimel did you say that you have to make sure not to put the pot agabe karka, because to put it on top of the other pot that you're putting on the stove as a blech, that's not derech bishul l'kach, as we see in Sif Hey. That's one kasha. Another kasha, we look later on in Shin Yud Ches, in the siman of Bishul, Shin Yud Ches, Sif Ches. There the Shulchan Aruch brings two opinions. He says in Shiur Ches Sif Ches, Laniach Davar Kar Shenis Bashal Kol Tzorko Al Gabi Mecham Shal Gabi Aish. You take something cold that was fully cooked, let's say some fully cooked chicken out of the fridge that you want to heat up on Shabbos. Yesh Omrim, some say Shedino Kaminicha Keneged Amadura. Some say to put it on top of another pot is like putting a Keneged Amadura, is only adjacent to the fire but not on the fire. Which is a bit much more kal than putting it on the fire. We don't have to have the dinim of shia chazara, the tanoim of chazara, when it's only keneged medura, when it's adjacent to the fire as opposed to on the fire. So this first opinion of the Shulchan Aruch holds that putting it on top of another pot is not considered like putting it on the fire itself. It's putting it like putting it adjacent to the fire. Anything you're allowed to put adjacent to the fire, where the place adjacent to the fire will bring it to Yatzalet Bo. It's a hot place. Could go in Shiyavish, like it's a dry thing. Then just like you're allowed to put it adjacent to the fire, you're also allowed to put it on the fire as long as it's on top of another pot. That's considered adjacent to the fire. The second opinion is the second opinion is it's like putting it on the fat on the fire l'chatchila, which was always usher. That's only Shia. Erev Shabbos is mutter, not on Shabbos itself. Only Chazor is mutter on Shabbos. Usher afilu in nishbashu kol tzorkoi, afilu mitztam haralo. Then it becomes usher, even like we saw always in, if you don't have the Tanaya Chazara, like just to take, we always said just to take a cold piece of chicken out of the fridge and put it on top of the belech. We can't do that. You're missing the Tanaya Chazara, even if it's mistamak haralo. But the Shulchan Aruch ends off Risho Nira Iker. But the first opinion is the way he paskins, that it's not considered on the fire; it's considered adjacent to the fire. So you don't need the Tanoim of Shia Chazara in order to do it. So since he's paskin over here Lakula, and when we get there in Hashem to Shiur Ches, we'll see that there's issues between Sif Zayin and Sif Ches. We're not going to go into now, but in Sif Ches itself, we see clearly that putting it on top of another pot. One pot on top of another pot is not considered like putting it on the blech. It's like considered adjacent to the fire. It's more kal. It's a bigger kula than it is to put it on a blech itself. And that seems to fit with what the Shulchan Aruch is passing back by us in Rishon Gimel Sif Hey, where he allows us to put the panadish on top of the pot on the fire, even though this panadish was not on the fire at all. So there was no tanoia chazara at all. There's no das to put it back on, there's no biyodo, it's like al gabi karka. So if in both places is bein mekel, then the Achronim will ask, Magen Avraham and many Achronim discuss this, that why is it okay, why is the Shulchan Aruch machmir in Sif Gimel not to put the pot al gabi karka if it's going to be going on top of another pot anyway, which should be okay according to Sif Hey and according to Shiur Ches Sif Ches. So the Bir Halacha discusses this point, and he brings a few different terutzim that the Achronim offer, and at the end, he himself is mukabel the terutz of the Pri Megadim. He brings in the name of the Pri Megadim that Sif Hey is talking about where the pot sitting on the fire is a full pot. It's a cooking pot. It's a pot that has food in it. So to put food on top of that, since the food itself is absorbing the heat, the food in the pot is absorbing the heat from the fire, so then anything that goes on top of that pot is not considered anymore agabi aish, not considered putting it on the fire, rather it's on top of something else which is absorbing the heat from the fire. And it doesn't have a problem of shia or chazor l'chatchila al agabi aish. And who would then that would apply also to Shiur Ches Sif Ches. Over there, we're talking about a mecham which is a hot water pot, which is sitting on top of the fire already. And there we're saying you're allowed to put another pot on top of it. So there also we're talking about a pot that has water in it. It's hot. It's boiling water from the fire. So that boiling water is already absorbing the heat of the fire. So the direct heat of the fire is considered to end at that point in that first pot. And now the second pot that goes on, that pot is not considered on the fire anymore. It's considered a elevated place, which is not directly on the fire. Instead, it's like adjacent to the fire, adjacent to the Eish. So that's a very important halacha that is very negei l'maisa, that often you want to take something out of the fridge. If you want to heat it up, we always said you have to put upside down plates, etc., which that fits into also this halacha over here. The kedei rekanis, the empty pot, is a problem because it's considered like a blech. But the poskim say, Rosh Zalman and others, that if the pot is upside down that you put on there, then that's already a shinui, and that's going to be okay. That's also better than just putting it on the blech. The shinui itself makes a difference, and so we have two ways of making a shinui. You can take an upside down pot, or many people take a baking tin or one of these aluminum tins, and you turn it upside down on top of the blech. Then that's all considered like an upside down pot. That's a shinui, and then you can take things straight out of the fridge and put it on there as long as they're objects which have no bishul by them, like already totally cooked and dry chicken. You want to put or a kugel on the fire, so you can put them on an upside down tray. Rosh Zalman mentions that the minig of many Sephardim is to take a kugel or a challah and put it directly onto the blech, and they're not concerned with it mixing a mavashal. So he explains their mahalach why they do that is because since we find over here in this sif that derech shinui, if you do it in a strange way, like the upside down pot or whatever, which shows you obviously not coming to do be mavashal, so that you can extend, or these Sephardim that are noeg l'hakel extend the svora of shinui to a type of food which is never cooked on gabi ha'esh. It's never cooked on the fire. So if you take a challah, which nobody ever bakes a challah on top of a stove, a stovetop, certainly on top of a blech on top of a stove, or on a stovetop at all, and the normal way to make a challah is inside the oven when you bake a challah or bake a kugel. Maybe a Yerushalmi kugel is different, which the Yerushalmi kugel is actually cooked in a pot on top of a fire, not in an oven. At least many of them are. But he says that's the svora of many Sephardim that want to put it then directly on the blech, because they consider that the food itself constitutes a shinui in the normal way of cooking, and therefore you have a combination of a blech and the shinui. It's okay, they hold it's okay. But he himself, Rosh Zalman, says that it's better not to do that, better to not put it directly on the fire, unless one is in a difficult situation, you have no other choice, then there is room to be mekel of b'shas adchak. That says Rosh Zalman. One other nakuda here is that with the nakuda, everything we just said now really fits into the point of the Mishnah Brura in Sifkat and Pei Aleph, that he brings the Ma'aril that says that if you have a hot area and you have to be masik al maziva, they used to have like on the stovetop they would have over the hot stove, they would have a kind of like a ledge going across. That ledge you could also put things on there to cook. He said you have to put a piece of wood on top of that maziva in order to make a heker. So this is the makar for the concept of hekera, this Maharil we just mentioned now, that if you do a hekera, which the heker will be sometimes putting an extra thing there, sometimes it'll be putting something upside down, whatever is the heker that is not considered a regular bishul, so that we see from the Maharil that we have a heter to do. That's as far as this sif. In Sif Dalid, the Shulchan Aruch says that one should be moche, not allow someone, those that are noeg, to do hatamana on Erev Shabbos with a kumkum shalmayim. You take a hot water pot and you're matmin it, you cover it with begadim or whatever to keep it hot. We're not talking on the fire now, talking about off the fire. So it's staying hot off the fire, and then the purpose of having that water is in order to, you have another pot, which this pot is also off the fire, but if you see that it's a very, very hot pot. In those days they had very thick metal pots, iron pots and skillets, and it would stay hot for a long time. And it's possible that the food, by the time you go to serve it, will be cooked by that pot itself enough that it'll start drying out. So you have the water that's in the hatmana in order to add it into the pot, if need be, if you see this drying out. The Shulchan Aruch says you shouldn't do that because it's possible that the water will have gone down to be less than rosayach, and if it's not any more yatsa lettuce, which is the minimum shiur of roschin, then if you pour it, according to the Shulchan Aruch, if you pour it into the next pot that has the food in it that you want to make sure it doesn't dry out, if you pour it in there, you're going to come to be mavashal this water that you're pouring into it. Even though it's still warm, but if it's not yatsa lettuce, it's not roseach, the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch is that to heat it back up again to yatsa lettuce, to put it into a kli rishon, which we paskin, we'll see in Sheni Ches, we paskin that a kli rishon off of the fire, even though it's not in the fire now, but it's still yatsa lettuce. A kli rishon is mavashal off the fire. It's a koach to cook things, even though it's not on the fire presently, because the koach of the original fire that's still in it that keeps the yatsa lettuce, that keeps within it it's shomer within it the koach to be mavashal to cook further. So therefore, the Shulchan Aruch says to be machmir. However, the Ramah just adds at the end of Ayin L'Kaman Simin Shin Yud Ches. Look later on Shin Yud Ches. So what does he mean by that? He doesn't explain himself. So the Mishnah Berurah and Aruch HaShulchan explain that the shot in the Kavanas Ramah is to allude to what he himself writes later on in Shin Yud Ches Sif Tes Vav, to be cholik on the Shulchan Aruch over there. And the Ramah says, like we mentioned in past shiurim, that the minig is, and that's the halacha, that anything that was cooked totally, and now it's cooled down, even though it's less than yatsa lettuce, but it's still warm, it's still nicker in it that it was mavushal. So then the ashita of the Ramah is that ein bishul achar bishul, to heat it back up again to yatsa lettuce is not considered an isser bishul. Rather, it's just heating up something that's already cooked. And the klala in bishul achar bishul applies even to liquids, not only to solids, but even to liquids if they cool down to less than yatsa lettuce, as long as you could still. The Moshe Feinstein writes that the shiur is that if you drink, let's say that cooled down tea, then less than yatsa lettuce, you still feel like you're drinking warm tea. You don't feel like it's cold tea. So then that's the shiur that the bishul is still liquor in it. So the Ramah is therefore, just by alluding to what he says over there, will therefore be cholik on this psak of the Shulchan Aruch, that as long as you know that the water is not totally cooled down, it's still warm, then there's not going to be ever any problem with adding it into the hot pot. And by the fact that it's a kumtum that's mutzman, that it's covered, it's surrounded by towels, and the way they used to know how to do it then to keep things warm, you know that it's going to at least be warm enough not to be a problem to do that. Which all this is not so negel bismanenu, because it theoretically could, but we don't have too many situations today of hatmana that we do off the fire, and you're going to come to heat it up. But we keep this in mind that this is an important machlokas from Chaber Ramah over there, and it plays out over here benegea to this halacha. Now just discuss for a moment the Ramban in Bereshis Perek Aleph Pasuk Chaf Tes, where Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Adam Rishon that he's given him all the Esav Zareh Zera, but as Rashi points out, he didn't allow him yet to eat basar. Adam and Chava were not allowed to kill an animal and eat it, and the Ramban goes on to explain that the heter to achilas basar only came. We see for the Gemara in Sanhedrin that only was a heter to Noach when Noach was matzel the animals. It was some kind of a schar given to Noach, the fact that they would have all died in the Mabul if not the fact that he saved them. So that gave Noach a special skus to be able to eat basar. And at that point, the Lashon Ramban is hitter lehem habasar. It became mutter. There was no mitzvah, there was no chiyuv to eat basar, at least for Noach, but he had a heter. And the Ramban explains that heter applies only to the basar itself, but not to the nefesh shaboy. The reason that Adam Rishon wasn't allowed to eat it, wasn't allowed to kill it or eat it, because even chayos have some type of a nefesh. They have, the Ramban in another place when he discusses Brias Adam, in some ways shows how that there is a dimyon between the nefesh of a person, which is the lowest chelik of a person. We know we have Api Kabbalah, nefesh, ruach, neshama. Nefesh is referring to the chelik ha'asiyah, the chelik ha'guf sheba'adam, and in certain ways we share in common with animals that they also have what's called a nefesh, and that's for that reason we're not allowed to eat the dam, keep a dam hu nefesh. So just like Adam Rishon couldn't kill and eat the animal at all in any way, shape, or form, the heter that was given to Noach still retained within it the problem of eating the actual nefesh of the behemoth, that part that the animal shares with Adam. That part has to be spilled, and the dam has to be nishbach, which is he says that's the time of the heter shchita. So of the shiur shchita and the heter shchita, which is to get the dam out, to get the nefesh out of it. We're eating just pure basar with no nefesh in it whatsoever. So the Ramban says that one time of shchita is in order to take away the nefesh, take away the dam, and the other, he says, because of its tsar ba'alechayim midiraisa. And so these two timing that we're not going to cause tsar to an animal. Certainly not going to eat every minachai. That was never hutar even to Noach. That's one of the Zion mitzvahs b'nei Noach, not to eat every minachai. But the Ramban says the time of shchita is for two reasons. Number one, to take out the dam, which is the nefesh. Number two, in order to not be over tsar ba'alechayim. And the Ramban adds a fascinating statement here and says, "V'zeh bir chasenu shemavarach asher kadeshanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu ala shchita." That the birchas shchita is going on these two mitzvahs. One is to not indulge in the nefesh of another animal, of another living thing, and number two, to take away the tsar ba'alechayim, which the Rabbi Shavel brings down the Chasam Sofer here that explains based on this Ramban. The Ramban's kilu saying that the bracha of shchita is kilu. We're saying asher kadeshanu b'tzasav v'tzivanu to be merachem al abrios, to have rachmanas on the brios and not to cause them tsar, which turns it into a positive thing, as opposed to the Taz that explains that the birchas shchita is only going on the avera of every minachai, and the Chasam Sofer is bothered by that because we don't usually find a bracha that goes on a negative. Brachas go on a positive. So even though there's no chi of shchita, there's a mitzvah asay of shchita. It's a mitzvah kiyumis, and it's nichlal, not mitzvah kiyumis, to have rachmanos on other brias as well as not to eat their nefesh. So it's just a fascinating other nakuda in the Ramban here is that we have shchita in order to take away the problem with tsar ba'alechayim, which that's exactly the point that we're attacked constantly. The Dorei Doros up until today that ki'ilu shchita is a davar achzari, and they try to outlaw it and have outlawed it in many countries, continue to try to do so for this reason of achzarius, which on the contrary, the whole Indian of achzarius we're getting away from. We're trying to be nostalgic from that through the shchita, and in fact, many studies have shown. I'm sure you've all heard about this and read up on it. How many studies have shown how many other ways that the goyim kill their animals are far more achzari than shchita, like when they shoot them in the head or electrocute them. Very often they don't die right away, and they're in pain. They have to shoot it again, or they have to re-electrocute it. Mashenke and shchita, the instant of shchita, there's instant brain death, and anything that does afterwards, any jumping around or any moving around, is only begetting mefarkeses, which is just a nervous reaction. The nerves that keep on going, but the actual animal is totally actually dead and doesn't feel that whatsoever. Kol tuv, and till next time.